If I didn't know any better, and I'm not so sure I do, I would bet the farm that farmers invented pickup trucks. I could ramble on for hours about why I think that, but not today. That'll be a story for another time. Got to keep these stories short. However, there is one particular tale I'm going to tell about the only time I remember my mother driving a pickup truck. Over the years, we had a lot of different pickup trucks on the farm. Yeah, animals weren't the only things my father would wheel and deal. Animals, trucks, cars, tractors, farm machinery, anything that could be bought or sold legally were fair game for the old man. The first pickup I remember was a post-war, pre-1950 Ford. I don't remember the exact year, just like a lot of details of it now long faded from my memory. About the only thing I remember, it was dark blue, or maybe black. Well, there is one thing I do remember quite clearly. The passenger door did not close properly. This little tale is all about why I remember that particular little detail so clearly, and why it's the only time I remember my mother driving a pickup truck ever. Now, back in the early and mid-50s, I'm sure my mother drove that truck at least a few times. Back then, I even remember her driving a tractor once. By 1955, the approximate time of this story, I was 5 and my 2 older brothers were 8 and 9. The 3 of us were still a bit too young for tractor jockeying, and our legs were too short to reach the pedals of the truck. So, whenever help was short, my mother sometimes got the call to pitch in with farm work. Now, by the late 50s, we 3 brothers were finally big enough to become bona fide farm hands, and by 1960, a 4th was on the way. Now, one day in 1955, well, I'm pretty sure it was 55 and not much later, because in 1956 we had a brand new 1956 Chevy pickup. Anyway, it was one day in 1955. My mother drove to the village of Montgomery and took her 3 sons with her. For the life of me, I cannot remember why she drove the truck to Montgomery or what she did there. I don't remember where in Montgomery she went. I don't even remember coming back home. I remember absolutely nothing about that trip to Montgomery except for one detail, one moment of that entire brief excursion. It all happened on the return leg exactly 1 mile from home. Most of the time, including this time, when we went to Montgomery, we would go south down Mills Road, turn left on East Searsville Road, east to River Road, turn right, and head south to Montgomery. On the return trip, we would simply backtrack the way we came. Well, 1 mile from home was the spot where River Road met up with East Searsville Road. Now, bear with me as I describe this intersection. Right there, River Road bears off to the right as it continues on southeast towards the village of Walden. East Searsville ends there in a fork. If you were coming out of East Searsville to go to Walden, you would take the left prong of the fork. If you're going to Montgomery, you would take the right prong. If you were returning from Montgomery, you would turn in on this right prong, which my mother did. In between these 2 prongs was a triangle of soft ground covered in tall grass. Fortunately, the normal seating arrangement in such situations when the 3 brothers rode in that truck with whatever parent or adult was as follows. The youngest, being me, would always sit next to the adult. Next oldest, being brother Jim, would be next to me. The oldest, being brother Dave, had the privilege of riding shotgun. Remember now, seatbelts did not exist in 1955. The moment my mother turned into that right prong, centrifugal force, Murphy's Law, and a defective latch opened the passenger side door. Maternal instinct instantly put my mother's arm around me, so I stayed put. Not so for brothers Jim and Dave. the law of physics and Murphy took them along for the ride of their lives. This is why that brief moment in history 65 years ago is so vividly etched in my brain. I can still see Jim and Dave skydiving out of that truck, arms and legs dramatically outstretched. I can still see them tumbling over each other as they landed in the tall grass and, yes, fortunately, on the soft ground. Now, my mother, you must know, was and shall always be in my memory as a lady of all ladies. But I can also still hear my mother scream, followed by several words far more foul than anything my father could ever possibly imagine. By the grace of God and the wet ground in that grassy triangle, this incident, most fortunately, had a happy ending. There were no broken bones or serious scrapes or cuts. I don't even recall either brother peeing pants. I also don't recall the foul, word-filled lecture my father got about the faulty door when we returned home, or the reason that truck was gone soon after. Funny thing about what you tend to remember and what you tend to forget. But then, that was years and years ago.